Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast, where in the last week, Frank and I shipped collectively 28 new applications to the App Store. How's it going, Frank Kruger?
Collectively. Yeah, hi, how you doing? I think collectively you mean you did 27.95 and I did 0.05. I believe that's how collectives work and all that. James, you have been super productive. Just making me jealous over here. Envious. Forget which one's which.
I'm not sure. As you collect tiny tools, as Scott Hanselman likes to say with this tiny tool town. Have you seen Tiny Tool
Yeah.
Town?
I saw him tweeting about it, but I forgot to actually check it out. I like the name. Scott's good at naming things. And then I let my imagination run wild. I just imagined that between you and Scott, you had just generated like 1,000 tiny little console apps or something like that. That's what I imagined. What really happened, James?
You did. I mean, so Tiny Tool Town is like the GeoCities of little tiny personal apps for one, which you and I both have collectively done.
Did you ever have a GeoCities site? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to derail you.
Okay. Angel Fire and a GeoCities and Homestead, I think, was another one.
Ooh, okay. You're ahead of me. I had GeoCities. I just hadn't thought of that name in a long time. It was nice to hear from you. Okay, so Scott reinvented
GeoCities for developers. Now I evolved quickly out of GeoCities because then I was doing some PHP, as one does, and I was working on Gray Matter, which was an early CMS. We talked about this on the pod probably 1,000 times. An early CMS, it might have been before WordPress or competitor to WordPress. But the whole idea was you deployed it to your server. So I had a GoDaddy server or FTP server, and then you'd upload it and you modify it and you set it all up. And there's scripting and chamoting and all those things. But you could customize it. And the cool part is that you could basically make your website and then put the little tag in your website to say, here's where I want the feed to come in. Like, here's where I want the blog content to come in, and it handled the deep links for you. So I would go into Photoshop and I would make my layouts that I have. Yeah. They're all custom. I was doing tons of custom graphic work, and they're all 800 by 600, 640 by 480. And then I would go and I would CMS it and have these blogs. And we had blog rings. Remember blog rings where you and your friends, you would collectively be in a ring.
Sign the guest book. Yeah.
Sign the guest book. Yep. And a little counter saying how many people were on your site. So yeah, we're there. So Scott built Tiny Tool Town. And it has a bunch of tools that you can submit, and it's got a bunch of tiny tools. And I have a bunch of tools there. I have,
Is it an app store? I'm addicted to app stores. Can I sell stuff? Can I sell my tiny tools?
Not yet.
Come on, Scott. Come on. Think of the little devs out here. Some of us got to make $1.
But you collectively could. I think that it's got to be free, fun, and open source.
Okay. Freemium and fun and open source.
It does nothing about the freemium in there, but I've put on PDF diff, the podcast metadata generator, the post helper, the README badge creator. I did the Oh My Posh configurator. I have 2 new tiny tools. One's called Tiny Clips, and then also the Tiny Tool Submitter, because Scott has you fill out this form that's like fill out all this metadata. And I was like, Scott, one does not fill out a form
that can easily be generated by GPT 4.0, whichever one's cheaper these days.
4.1, baby. It is a solid. I can read text and I can put text in this other area. So I created the Tiny Tool Submitter.
Sweet.
And I use the Copilot SDK because what I want to do is I want to be like, hey, I'm in my repo. And then I created a .NET 10 tool. So you can do DNX, Tiny Tool Submitter. It downloads it automatically, runs it, and it'll parse your entire README, your repo, all the things. Look for licenses, look for things. Nice. And then we'll give you a URL that will then pre-populate all of his thing.
Love it.
I made that in .NET, and then somebody was like, oh, they ported it over to JavaScript. Like, if you don't want to install .NET, then do this. I was like, okay, fine. So they did it, and I was like, and it was like install bun. I was like, I'm not installing bun. I was like, so I went into Copilot and I was like, hey, Copilot, convert this to JavaScript. And it's like, took legitimately 2 minutes. And then I was
Yeah.
like, cool, make a CI pipeline for NPM, got my token, and I published it. And I was like, boom. So now when you go to submit, this is kind of cool. tinytooltown.com. I've been mostly working on his submit your tool page because he now has page themes and you can now preview the theme right there, which is cool. But then underneath, you'll see submit your tiny tool. So you got your tiny tool for .NET, and you got an NPM package. You can DNX or NPX, tiny tool submitter. Bingo bango, you got your tiny tool. You are off to the races. So, and then it just submits it. So I think his whole tiny tool thing is all about what we're just talking about, right? Which is it's
Yeah.
someone once said apps are dead, and I said apps are thriving. Apps. It's never been a
Oh
better time to
yeah.
be an app developer of one.
never
User one.
never a better time to fall behind as an app developer either.
Mm.
I know we're not going to make this the whole subject of the podcast, but I have to quiz you because I got you here, and it's easier than reading a document. You're my agent, by the way. I call you Agent James. Um, Agent James. Can I post like Mac apps on here also? In particular, Mac apps that Apple would never let me put on the App Store because Apple has lots of rules, and I don't follow rules.
I wouldn't see why not. I submitted my tiny tool, my tiny clips. That's a
Okay.
Mac app. You can put any app you want.
So is
Anything.
it binaries? Are you actually uploading a binary, or are you just pointing it at your own distribution page?
You point it to GitHub.
Yeah. Okay. No big deal.
It's like every tiny tool gets a tiny page, and then that tiny page.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, I also to Scott's. I was like, anyone can submit this. I'm like, anyone can submit a tiny tool. And if you're like me, you will probably put the minimum amount of effort into it, unless you're using the tiny tool submitter. So what I did is if you go to a page, if you go to like the Tiny Tool Town and then go to browse, you can type in, Montemagno in there or James, you'll see all my tiny tools. But you can click on any of them. And then you'll also see, if you scroll down, Copilot says, and there's AI generated like blurbs with emojis about the tool. Because when I first submitted, I really didn't submit anything good. So I made a tiny tool to create tiny AI summaries using the Copilot CLI. So Scott has integrated that into his work stream that when people submit it, it'll go and generate a tiny summary on it as well, which is great. So, and all my tiny tools have different tiny themes that he has in there. So you can, and I had Copilot assign that. So yeah, so it's all about the problem is updating the tiny tools and keeping them up to date. And that is the next key. And I know GitHub just released agentic workflows, but I'm not quite there yet. I need to go deeper into those.
Yeah, it turns out running an app store is a lot of work. There's a lot of little details. Like we're always complaining about that last 20% it takes to upload an app, but like app stores need all that stuff. Like you just wait till he starts forcing you to upload banner graphics and icons in 6 different sizes. Then we'll know Scott's really made it.
Yeah. He has
have to fill out the privacy notices, the age rank.
He's got a tiny tool that they'll go through and it'll find the first image in the README. However, that's not that it's dangerous, but it could be dangerous. So you gotta have some content moderation. And I think if you go to his repo, he's got a bunch of agents running, talking about agents that are automating and talking, is this a good review? Is this that? Is this whatever? So
Okay. Yeah, so I think the thing here is that we are just writing more apps than ever. We keep talking about how like the barrier to entry used to be, do I really want to spend a day getting a very bad prototype of this app up and then a week to get it to the point where it's actually a usable app and its data model is stable to the point where I can actually use it. I always make the joke, the cobbler's children have no shoes. it's that old programmer thing. Like we often, even though we're the ones who can write apps, we never do because we know how much work they are. But AI's kind of changed that. Now, whatever terrible idea I have on the morning, I usually spend 8 hours yelling at an agent. And after that 8 hours, I usually have a working app or something like that these days. And so it's pretty cool to actually make a distribution channel for those. Boy, it makes me wonder if there's going to be a lot more of these little app stores popping up because, like you said, there's just going to be an explosion of apps. I mean, it's becoming so easy now. And not everyone wants a web app. I know you can host a web app, but I don't need 8,000 servers to maintain and all that. I still like apps.
Yeah. And I did make an app. I made a Mac app. Can you believe that I made a tiny Mac app? And I made a Mac app that only lives in your toolbar. Can you believe that? That's wild.
I love toolbar apps. I hope that that's a little bit of my influence on you, just trying to convince you.
A tiny bit?
It's gonna be bad though. The toolbar's already getting full. I'm looking up at my
So
menu
so
bar
much
on
stuff. So much stuff.
yeah.
It's like it's
Uh,
literally half of my screen. It's so big. And I'm on an ultra wide. I'm on an ultra wide, people.
oh no. And are you committing the ultimate heresy, which is you put color up in there? I hope your icon is black and white only.
Ah,
Don't you dare
ah,
put any color up there. The stupid Copilot has this little green check mark that it
it
puts up
does.
there. And I want to uninstall it just because of that stupid check mark. I cannot stand that green check mark
I'll
just
tell the
sitting
team.
up
I'll tell
there
the team. I'll tell
mocking
the
me.
team. I'll
Oh,
tell
I
the team.
filed a bug report. I'm like, get rid of that color. What, have you ever used a Mac in your life? You do not put color in the main
You know,
menu bar.
right now, and by the way, right now, and this is a great point from Mr. Frank Kruger, is on both of our screens because the video camera is being used. The little like you're being
Yeah.
projected or captured. It's like blue. I have like display link manager or whatever. I have a thing in display link because I have the projector, and it's like the blue thing. And I'm like, what is it? Why is it? Why is it? It's literally so bold in my face. It's
Yeah.
interesting that too because I have the Microsoft Defender app on it as well, and it has just a checkbox that's white, so they did it right. Interesting.
Apple
Yeah.
has
No.
this terrible. Sorry, no, get
Uh,
our chance to complain about Macs here for a minute. There's this really weird thing where if you have software that's using the video camera and you make it
yes.
full screen, which should hide the main menu bar, it still puts a little tiny green dot up there. And this
Yeah.
was introduced one or two Mac OSs ago,
Hmm.
maybe even just this one. And I think it is the worst, most terrible thing on the planet. Like, yeah, I get that privacy thing of like, we all don't have integrated webcams. So most webcams don't show a little green dot. So you know it's recording. But for Apple to just put a green dot on my screen in an area where A, there should be no color, but B, there should be no dots. My God. It drives me
Blasphemy.
nuts. You're trying to like watch a full screen video and you just happen to have a webcam running for whatever reason, because I'm always recording myself. I'm that vain, I'll admit it. And now there's just a green dot sitting up there. Ugh.
Yep.
Ugh, James, is there anything worse?
There's a green dot right now, and then also that Siri icon. So colorful. So colorful.
You can turn that one off. I did. Anything with color
Okay.
gets turned off.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Get
Okay.
out of there. Get out, Siri. What are you doing?
No, 5.3 Codex made an icon that is just a normal icon. It might just be a built-in icon. I don't know what it did, but it has an icon that's built in. And yeah, so
Okay.
I think tiny tools are about this. They're about you build things for yourself. Over the weekend I built this insulin tracker. I'm always building insulin trackers. I built this
Mhm.
native .NET MAUI app for iOS
Yeah.
and Android, and Heather and I are using it. It's on the App Store. Not in the App Store yet, but it's in TestFlight to go into the App Store, and we're testing it out. We're doing a bunch of stuff. It's got file image uploads, it's doing a backend and stuff. We talked about it.
Collaborative. You have multi-user working on the same data. I love those kinds of apps.
Yep, same data, no user accounts. Just you get a GUID when you boot up the app. You're good. That's
See
yeah.
episode 120 or whatever when we talked about
You know,
no user accounts, GUIDs everywhere.
some people say you're a cog in the machine. I say you're a GUID in the machine. So yeah. So I was sitting there the other day, and this was the new version of Visual Studio Code 109 had an update. They did an update mid-release. They're trying to do these weekly updates to stable,
Mm.
and they came out with a few new features like steering and slash commands for skills. So they're kind of like prompts, which is really cool, and a few other things. And I record a lot of videos, and I just happen to be on my Mac, and I often will boot up QuickTime because it's an easy way to do it, or I'll open up Camtasia, or I'll open up OBS, and open up an app to do a screenshot. Now I can Command Shift 5, whatever it is, and the whole thing opens. It's a big deal, and the thing goes over here, and that is fine. But I
Mhm.
said, you know what? It'd be really nice if I had something that I could very quickly take a screenshot with a region. I could very quickly do a video or maybe even record a GIF because I need those
Mm.
options. And I said, wouldn't it be great if also it just lived in the toolbar? So I had like, keyboard commands, obviously. So I could like shift
Okay.
command, whatever. But what if I could also open like editors? Because I'm often recording videos and I often need to speed them up. So wouldn't it be cool to speed them up
Okay.
or do annotations on top of them, right? The workflow today is take a screenshot, open the screenshot, go into the markdown tool, save the file, do a thing. What if that was all just in one app? What if it was just integrated into a beautiful little app? So I
What
made
if?
tiny clips so you can make tiny clips of things on your desktop, tiny clips.
Oh, I'm terrible. See, I knew about the name and I knew we were talking about tiny tools, and yet I still didn't put two and two together or tiny and tiny together. Of course, you made tiny clips.
Tiny,
It's a tiny
tiny
tool
clips.
called Tiny Clips.
It's a tiny, tiny
Lovely
tool.
name, by the way. I hope Scott doesn't come after you for copyright there.
Trademark.
Trademark copyright. Oh, that's funny because you said you wanted to open editors, and it looks like you're not opening a video editing software. You wrote video editors,
I
which
just built it.
this is Mac, so there's actually really nice media APIs like AV
I
Foundation and AV Kit are amazing.
so good. And I was like,
But
I know these APIs. I know that there's good APIs. So,
yeah,
those Mac APIs play no games. So I'm like,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, this is a really cool app. I hope you'll share the source code with me because I actually end up writing talking about tiny tools. I write tons of tiny little video editor things that I never release because they're usually specialized to what I'm doing. You tend to think more generally. You're better at that than I am, but I'm always curious about the details because recording the screen on the Mac, the APIs are varied. You can go by window, you can go by app, you can go by monitor, you can go by the whole desktop. And so it's not so much like, is it hard to record the screen? It's more hard, like, how do you design an app to record the screen? Like, do you present all those options and anything? Anyone who's ever tried to share their screen in like Discord or something knows this pain, like this a crazy dialogue that comes up and has you like select exactly what you want to record on, all that stuff. So I'm curious how you made decisions there because this could easily feature bloat into the ultimate capture tool ever. And that's what I would do, and I would never release it because I'd get so caught up in that. And then the fact that you put editors in, I would get totally caught up. Let me give you an example. I like to train neural networks, and I used to love training neural networks that generated like images and 3D models. Well, it's 2026, so now I'm trying to get into video generation also. But for training data, you need to I need to create like little clips of videos because I can't train on the general problem of video. I need like this kind of clip, that kind of clip. And so I go through my video collection and I pull out clips. And I wrote like a cute little editor that opens a video file and lets you select multiple regions and lets you tab through a few like frames at a time and you can select things. And then there's nice export options and it'll dump all that stuff out. I probably spent like 4 days even with an AI working on it, like fine tuning the UI so it felt like really good and everything. And then James comes along and writes an app that does screen capture, lives in the menu bar, and has all this trimming capability built into it. So I'm curious how you whittled down the design surface because I think there's just so many options an app like this could have.
Yeah, this was fascinating because I took a different approach to this application. I have this general mentality, which is a new paradigm that I use, which is plan, implement, review. And
Okay.
I use three different models for plan, implement, review.
Love it.
And you can now set up default in VS Code. You can set up default models for each mode.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
in handoffs. So for example, you can have a default agent where you just go and switch manually to agent. You're like, oh, maybe I want Opus or maybe I want Sonnet 4.6. But when I go into plan, I default to 5.2. If the
Okay.
new five,
Interesting. Yeah.
normal, just baseline, because these models, a base level 5.2, it's not implementing the code. I am planning a feature. Now it has to understand high level the code, but really, if the AI is generating good generating good
Plans,
comments
designs.
and plans and
Yeah.
designs, it can parse the idea of what's there. It's not going into implementation details. That's for the implementer to decide. Think of it as a
Hmm.
PM handing over ideas to a developer to go implement.
Yeah.
So 5.2 is my PM. Okay.
Let me interrupt you just because I love interrupting you. I did accidentally use 5.2 once as a code generator. Don't do that because it just gets way too promiscuous. I'm like, hey, maybe I'm thinking about this feature. And it's like, okay, I'll be right back with you. Just going to go generate 30 source files and completely
Yeah.
finish this plan for it. It gets a little ahead of itself. So highly recommend not using plain 5.2 for actual code.
That's why there's Codex. They're both 1x multipliers. So you might as well
Yeah.
use the one that you want for coding and the one not for coding to not code. So then you can say when I hand off to implementation, switch to another model, and I now use, I go back and forth between Opus 4.6, but more recently, it used to be handoff to Sonnet 4.5 because I just love Sonnet um,
For coding.
for
That's what
coding
we're yeah, so you just went from plan to coding.
to
Okay.
plan to
One
code.
step.
But now my default is 5.3 Codex. So
Cool.
I think
Okay.
that it is very, very good in established code bases. I
Yeah,
really enjoy Opus from scratch, where there's like not a lot of code base, like build this thing, blah blah blah. And then once
I'm
the
with
code
you.
base is established, 5.3 Codex is a very good model. But then what I do once I implement is I get a little promiscuous and I say, hey, Opus and or Gemini Pro 3 Pro, go
Oh,
review
wow.
the file, review the plan in the same window. I say
Mm.
review the plan, the implementation of that plan, and then give me a detailed report and analysis of any high, medium, or low things that I need to improve.
Okay, this is before coding. So you just used,
No, after
let's say,
coding. No,
oh,
no.
okay, so 5.2 plan
Implement
ish,
with
let's say.
5.3. Yeah,
Yep.
implement with 5.3 Codex generates the code. And then I'm still in agent mode, but I have a custom agent that is called review, and it automatically switches to Opus 4.6. And I have another one for Gemini 3 Pro.
Crazy, crazy. So you're using Opus, you're using your 3x credits for review, huh?
Yeah.
I feel like I guess I'm the bad manager. I'm like, oh, anyone could review. So I would use the smartest model I have for the coding and then a dumber model for the review. But I do like the idea of using multiple models because they all do have their own biases and weirdnesses. So I do like that mix up. Um, have you tried reviewing the plan with a different model before coding? Because that's where I thought you were going to go with this.
I haven't actually. That would be kind of cool to do. Maybe review even with like a Codex model or a Sonnet model to say, hey, listen, this is this. Is there any implementation details that need to be documented
Mm,
beforehand? That's pretty good idea actually. I might try that as well. The main reason that I use 5.3 Codex is it's very very fast.
yeah.
Codex 4.6 is also fast, but I mean there's fast, but I'm not whatever that multiplier is paying for that.
Yeah.
But I prefer to have my code written better, faster with a review that takes a little bit more time. I'd rather the review
Mhm.
take longer and be more in depth than sometimes the code because that's actually how I work. I slang code personally, and it's not very good, and then I review it later. But
This
I
is
think
funny.
the code that I've been getting out of 5.3 Codex has been fantastic. Almost one-shotting everything, and
Okay.
usually it's a little minute detail. Sometimes Opus will be like, "Oh, but like the terminology that you used here actually may not mesh, and I think maybe it should be this other." There are some intricacies, but then sometimes it's a little
Yeah.
bit more finessed in there. So the multiple models I think is underrated, and especially um, doing back to back audits of reviewing the code changes. I think with different models is quite impressive.
It's funny. I had to unofficially implement your technique, the James technique. I was rocking Codex because someone on Twitter named James Montemagno was talking about how Codex is great and you don't need Opus anymore. So I'm like, I'm gonna believe James and I'm just gonna use. It's so hard to A/B test these things, right? Because like you got to like reset the code and rerun the experiment, and they're all stochastic anyway, so there's always wiggle room, and all that. So anyway, I just decided the only way to really understand these things is force myself to use one kind of model for the day, and then like usually by the end of the day, I'll decide, am I happy or sad that I had to use that model all day or something like that. Anyway, if you want to stress test an AI agent, have it implement drag and drop. My God. In general, these AI agents are terrible at native UIs. Not terrible, but they're not as good at native UIs as they are at web UIs. But drag and drop, I found in particular, they're all across the board terrible at. And I'm going to say probably just because there's not a lot of code on the internet for them to learn from. A lot of devs don't do native code, and a lot of native code devs don't bother with drag and drop. So I think the sample size is just small. So they're all terrible at it. And I had this day where I just had Codex just. At first, I'm like, hey, go implement drag and drop. It's like, I got you, bro. I'm going to go do it. Gives me what sounds like a good plan. I'm like, start implementing, baby. And it goes and does it. And officially, it worked. But it had to be the worst drag and drop implementation I'd ever seen in my whole life. Like, it was ugly. It wasn't using any of the native stuff. It was rendering its own like drag icon and all that stuff. And then on top of that, no, I mean, that's mostly it. It was mostly just, you could tell it was a lot of hacks versus the correct way to implement it. So I'm like, hey, Codex, it's kind of hacky. Go fix it. And then it spins. I'm like, no, that's still not right. And then it does like weird mouse tracking overrides where it's actually monitoring. I'm like, no, you can't do that. And it's like, okay, bro, I'm going to do gesture based and all this stuff. I'm like, no, you can't do that because now the keyboard doesn't work. There's details to how drag and drop are supposed to work on an operating system. So finally, I had to like turn off Codex and bring Opus in and be like, yo, I'm really sorry, Opus. This code is a mess, but can you come back through here and figure out what the heck happened and clean it all up? And it's funny, like, I know how to implement drag and drop, but I've gotten so used to using these agents. And I'm just like, don't make me code this. Like, that just feels like the last straw. Like, man, if I have to hand code drag and drop one more time in my life, I'm done. So, but fortunately, Opus was able to come through and clean it all up. So it's funny that like accidentally I fell into your system of it was essentially doing a code review and a cleanup step afterwards. Yeah.
I had that as well. So like this app, I went through this process of plan, implement, review along the way and kind of snapshotting the features. So I think that was unique with this. I actually start with a blank folder. So I didn't create a project, didn't do anything.
Danger zone.
Danger zone. I did give it a few sample repos. I was like, hey, I recently created this Mac app. Like, I also want a CI pipeline. Like, here's kind of the base that I want. I started really basic with the app. And kind of, a lot of people are like all about, can I one prompt shot an entire app from scratch? And I think that's fine. You can't.
I'll just say it.
So I started very simple and I said, I would like a toolbar app that has 3 functions: take a screenshot, record a video, record a GIF, and puts it onto the disk. And I said, this is going to be a non-sandbox app. Go to town.
Oh, really?
Blah, blah, blah.
Sweet. That's a nice luxury to give yourself.
I did. And that didn't necessarily bite me in the butt, but I should have said, I may want to not sandbox it in the future. But I was like,
by the way, can work with sandboxing, no problem. It's allowed.
We'll get there because I got it on TestFlight already. So I went down this and it pretty much one-shotted it pretty good. And did some research, did some planning. I think that these APIs as well are pretty standard. They've been around for a while and they're out there. There's a lot of new accessibility, settings with pop-ups and dialogues for screen recording. But besides that, it's good to go. And it pretty much did it right away. And it didn't give me information or options, just had defaults for like the screenshot, video, the GIF, like what the defaults were. And then I said, okay, let's make a little settings page that pops up when you go to it, blah, blah, blah. Give me some settings. And then boom, boom, boom. Now we have FPS. Now we got this stuff. Now we got that stuff. So I was pretty happy with that. I was like, I could just ship it. And I used it right away. And I was like, yeah, but like what I'm noticing is that especially when I take a video, is that I have to hit the start button and then my mouse moves over. I was like, man, I just want to trim. Just want to trim.
A small feature, just a little trim.
Just a little trim. So I added the trimmer in there. And then I want to trim GIFs and then this. And it pretty much one-shotted video playback, trimming. It gave me a little slider on both sides. Now, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but talking about how cool the Apple APIs are, the built-in AV Player view has built-in trimming UI support baked into it.
Ah,
I'm curious if the AI knew about that, or did it write its own crazy trimming controls?
I don't know.
Hard to
That's
say. Hard to say. Who
hard,
knows?
hard to say.
I'll look through your
Hard to
code.
say.
But okay, I'm just PSA. If you ever do need a quick trimmer, it's actually baked into the native video player control. If you're
I
doing this in an
I
app,
don't I don't think it is. I think it created its own. It's very
of
good.
course it did.
I think it did. It's very nice. So I started to build these out. So every single plan here, I was starting to basically just do what I just said, which was plan, implement, review along the way. So I was like, bum, 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 bum. So it was like plan, 1 minute, implement 1 minute,
Hmm.
review 1 minute. So I was like, boom, boom,
Okay.
boom. After the first rev, and then as I started using the app, I did this all in VS Code, all in VS
Yeah.
Code, and I generated instructions. I said, make sure you build, Xcode build after every single rev,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. Look at the
Okay.
logs. I ran it from Xcode. That's still the easiest in my opinion because you get all the
Yeah.
debugging, all this other stuff.
The
And
console output, let's just say, because like the error reporting in Mac apps is atrocious.
exactly,
So you
exactly.
really need to see that little Xcode debug console to know like if anything's going on.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
My favorite is actually the edit screenshot. Because you don't need to trim it, but you can crop it. And it one shotted cropping, rectangle, circles, arrows, lines, drawing, text,
Saw that.
redaction,
It's,
image pick or color picker. And then also you can move the things on the
it's
screen, the
amazing.
overlays.
It's
And now
really
you can,
amazing. It's
now,
weeks of work. Just a couple years ago, that was weeks of work. It's amazing.
now the thing that took the longest, to your point, is actually the arrows and lines. They were, for the longest time, able to go down and to the right, but never up into the left, ever. Never. They just did not want to flip over that axis. And that one took like 5 or 6 minutes. And then that one, Opus did come in and then figured it out and then switched back over. But once I did it, I was like, document that. But it's very good. It's great. It is absolutely bananas that I have. It has a whole cropper, it has undo capabilities. It is silly. And then I added scaling, I added formatting, I added, a compression ratio for JPEGs on it. You can copy it to clipboard, you can save it, you can do a bunch of stuff. I'm not saying it's the perfect UI, but it's pretty dang good. Um,
It's got an
and
onboarding screen. I've learned that much.
I added a new getting started screen wizard that goes on with it. I added recently, for the playback, so you can do 1.1, 1.2, 2.5 speed on your videos and GIFs as well. I also, because I did ship it through GitHub Actions and Sparkle, which we've talked about before. The nice thing is I already had a Sparkle implementation for Baby Smash that worked. So I said, copy paste this, do this, and it
Yeah.
did. Um, and then I put it out into the world and I made a video. Funnily enough, you can't make a video of tiny clips with tiny clips because it hides the tiny clips UI from
It's good. It's
it,
good.
which
It
makes sense
should.
because when you do a video recording and you select the area on the screen, it actually does. It can record your desktop and your microphone now. And then
Yeah.
when you hit record, it does a 3, 2, 1 countdown and then
Yeah.
starts recording the area. And it has a little countdown. So it doesn't want to record any of that UI.
Sometimes
So
it does 3, 2, 1 grant permission dialogue. I should put that out there,
oh,
but
yeah.
I'm sure that's just a one-time thing.
Yes, it is. Well, if you go through the getting started wizard, it will guide you through enabling all permissions.
It's really great. I'm using it right now. I just made my first GIF. I don't know what a GIF is, but I'm able to make a GIF.
Okay.
Though I do have a question. I stopped recording. Where did my GIF go? Is it somewhere?
Um,
Could be
so go
anywhere.
into your settings, it'll tell you where it's saving to.
Okay.
I don't
Nice,
know what
nice.
version you installed. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 0.12 or something. Oh, it went to the desktop. That's where all files go. I should have known.
went right to your desktop. Now you can change that in the settings, obviously. That's where the it goes to the desktop for the non-sandbox version, and then it goes to your movies or pictures for
Oh,
your
I
other
see.
ones.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can you should it should be on by default, which is open editor after capture, and then that will give you the editor. Sometimes it doesn't go, it might be behind your browser, so but sometimes it depends on where you're what you're
Oh,
clicking on.
right. Sure. It's there. It's there. You're right. Too many windows. User error. A little bit of your. You should bring that window to the foreground. But
I've been battling with Mac OS screen bringing to foreground.
no, that is
So
100% what we used to say in the Windows world. Owner drawn trimming controls. That is
yes,
classic.
pretty good.
Beautiful.
So
uh,
yeah.
this is fantastic. I can't seem to figure out how to put like an arrow on my newly created GIF.
Not on the GIF,
But
but on the screenshot.
ah,
Go to
just
now
screenshot.
do a screenshot and then see the
Oh,
UI.
okay. I see.
That being said, I could technically do that, but it might be for the whole thing. Yeah. I don't want to get too crazy with it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of what I was saying in the beginning. It's like, where do you draw the line in an app like this? Like, it's 2 seconds away, and you're creating Final Cut Pro or something. If you just go too far.
So when I first came out with it, I said I want to do this. Now I also built. You can go to tinyclips.app. I own a domain.
Of course. Did
This
you
is
have an MCP server buy you a domain?
I should have. This is an app. This is a website that Codex built, and then Gemini 3 Pro did a UI code review and enhanced the UI a little bit. Still got a little bit of way to go, but it's just HTML and CSS. It's wild. And it was really cool. Actually, Codex did this really cool thing where in the gallery, it created Python scripts to generate like artwork that I can put into the App Store. Like
Oh,
on the very
fantastic.
bottom, it's yeah, tinyclips.app. Anyways, it's there. It's a website that exists. And then I made the video, I did the whole thing. It's there. And then I wanted to put it on the App Store. And this is complicated because um, this is the next plan I did. I said, I want it to be sandbox. And I said, do an analysis. Can I sandbox this app? And it said, yes, but you need to change these few things, like going to the desktop. So it devised an entire plan basically to create another profile. The Xcode, build
Scheme or
profiles
profile? Okay. Scheme.
scheme. I don't know what
Scheme.
it's called. It generated for me a scheme for the MAP, the Mac or MAS, Mac App Store, the MOS.
Moss.
So I have Tiny Clips MOS and yeah,
Moss app.
MOS app. So it pretty much one-shotted that as well. And what that ended up
Dang.
doing was it had to do all the stuff that we had talked about. Remember when I made that I was making that one Mac app that had to do with like files and stuff, and it has like the bookmarks and all the stuff that you have to do for like saving files and stuff. What was I even building?
Yeah, saving files isn't so bad, but opening files that people selected and then reopening them later is tricky because you have to create a bookmark to the URL, which is this
Yep.
weird data thing with the security permissions kind of baked in to that data thing. It's funny, I was just working on that the other day because as Mac developers, you are constantly creating bookmarks to
Bookmarks.
URLs. It's just what we do all day long.
Oh, I was doing that for my stream timer. That's right, bookmarks. So you can save the file. So now you
Yeah.
can save the files wherever you want on it,
Excellent.
and it did it. It did this whole thing, and um, it was actually really interesting. It was able to get it on TestFlight, and there was this crash
Mm.
for some reason. Some API didn't one shot it, and I went down and I said, "Hey, I installed the release TestFlight version, and it just seems to be crashing on this thing, and I'm running on my local machine." And it's like,
Hmm.
let me look at the code. Like when you think, I don't know, and then it was all like, and it was like the user, and I was reading the logs. Like the user said they were running on their local machine. It's like, I wonder if there's logs on the machine. It like literally assets of. It's like, I wonder if there's
I
crash
wonder.
logs. And it literally went and found the crash logs for the app, diagnosed the crash logs, and then fixed the bug, whatever it was. And like, it was wild.
Creepy.
It was crazy. It was very cool. So yeah, so I just got it on TestFlight. I put a link up on the Twitter on there, and I'm going to release it soon if Apple accepts it. But yeah, I've just been kind of going to town. It's open source on GitHub. And I think it's really interesting because it's a tiny tool that this is a tiny tool I'm going to use every single day. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
this is like because I use Control Shift 4 almost every single day, Command Shift
Yeah.
4 to snip.
Shift. Yeah.
But now I need to do
Do you have a
Shift
system
Command
wide?
5. What's that?
Shift Command 5. 5 for screenshot, 6 for video,
Oh,
7 for
ch-
GIF.
check this out. Hold down Option.
Oh boy. I think my whole computer just crashed. No, just kidding. I didn't notice what happened. What happened?
Open the
Oh,
toolbar.
I see. Full screen, so I don't have to select the rectangle. Pro move.
That's a pro move.
You're
That's pretty
officially a
good.
Mac developer when you're hiding features behind the
It-
Option key.
so I was in plan mode and it's like, how do you want to present this to the user? And it was like, do you want to have another entry? Do you want to have a setting? Do you want to, and it was literally like add option key hold down, like native apps or whatever. It was like
Yeah, you're
power,
like, heck
like
yeah.
Mac power users or something. And I was like, yes, that's the one that I want.
Absolutely undiscoverable, and yet once people learn it, you just do kind of remember it, sadly.
Yeah, it's there. So there you go. You can hold it
Fantastic.
down and you're good to go.
Oh,
So,
the Apple reviewers are not going to find that. That's a good way to hide features too from everyone. So it's great. I think I will try your plan code review technique. That sounds pretty solid. I tend to do the reviews myself. I'm still old fashioned that way. I like to read over the code. It's why I still use VS Code and none of the CLIs, because I still think VS Code has the best reviewing what changed. I like seeing those little squares with the dot in them show up. I don't know what that icon's supposed to represent, but it's a square with a dot in it, and I go and look at all those files and I page through those. I like to do that. That's why I don't use those CLIs. I don't know how anyone, I guess they're not control freaks like me. Like, how do coders use those CLIs? Like, do they just don't care? It's weird. Anyway.
oh, well, you can now like do /IDE and like review. It'll bring up VS Code and like show you the diffs and everything
then
inside
you just
that.
start in VS Code anyway. Cool. I use a slightly different technique. I'm interested. You didn't one shot the whole app. Did you just do your plan code review in the early days? I'm sure you did file new template in Xcode, or did you let it go from scratch too?
To go to town, bro. Figure it out.
You roll the dice more than I do.
So figure it out. Well, and the cool part in plan mode, even for that, it asked me, do you want an Xcode project? Do you want the Xcode workspace? Do you want it to just be files that you compile? And I was like, I want this one, right? And it just kind of did its thing. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I use a different technique, even for my tiny app things. I spend a lot of times now nailing down my design in an agentsmd file. And I have a general policy of I like to keep working at it until basically I've filled up the context window. Once it says it's summarizing the conversation, I'm like, okay, we've probably thought this app through enough. But I like to really nail down the design and have a discussion and check through everything. And that's been giving me a lot of confidence, because what I found, I think I said this on an earlier podcast, and you just said it earlier too. When you have an existing app, it seems to be, you can trust the AI a lot more because it can look at other code. It gets a feel for how you like to code things. It knows the architecture of the app. But in those early moments of app development, I still am a bit of a control freak. I like to know exactly how it's going to model things, where it's going to put things, what technologies it's going to use. And so I personally spend a lot of time, I would say, and by a lot of time, I mean a few hours, really doing a nice, thorough agents MD. And it'll probably get trimmed later because I don't need to inject it into every prompt and all that kind of stuff. I used to do this in like the README. I used to start with like, let's start with an app store description, and then we'll build out the technology and all that. But I've evolved my own process to building out a beautiful agents MD file. Once I have that, then I do the plan code thing, plan code. Plan code review, though. I think that's a nice thought technology now. At least give that a swing on the next round. But I also appreciate multi-model support. Good stuff, James.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's my go-to, is just kind of here's where I go with it and go to town. I've been doing that. with almost everything that I do in
Okay.
this app. I'm thinking, like right now, for example, I was realizing actually if you do Shift Command 5, it actually still brings up the Apple one. So the Apple one in there,
Yeah, it's hard to
So
override
it's hard to
Apple
rest.
command keys. I'm not even sure if you can, to be honest. So.
So I'm going to tell it, oh, go find some key combinations in which it's unique, right? So maybe Control Command 1 or 2 or something. I don't know.
Do some
So
competitive analysis, see what
yeah,
other capture software uses.
yeah. Can you do some analysis of default hotkeys? It looks like the ones we have are used already by macOS apps built in. So to go and do it. So now, again, I could just tell it to do that, but I actually want to like review it too. And like, is that what I
Yeah,
want? Is that what I not want? XYZ. So it's going to go and find it. Right. And then it's going to go use some sub agents and go do some research. Maybe it'll find some Apple docs and do a thing. Right. And if you have, docs and other things, it'll go find it. So I think that's just my general plan, not for every single thing that I do. Like obviously if I'm fixing a bug that I find and I know where it's at or I kind of know what's going on,
yeah,
I'll just kind of point it at it and do it. But in this case, this is a bug, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I needed to go figure out the current hotkey schema. I needed to figure out and like look on the internet and find some things, like go do it. Right. So
yeah.
it'll go off and do it. And then I'll switch to 5.3 Codex and let it go to town.
Well, I want to challenge myself, and
Mm-hmm.
by that, I'm going to challenge all the listeners also. What was the Tiny Tools URL?
TinyTooltown.com.
Tiny to- tinytooltown.com. Got it. I'm going to challenge myself and everyone listening. We all have tiny tools sitting in our projects folder somewhere, and we know we haven't released them. I challenge you and me to go release one tiny tool somewhere within the next week and tell us about it on the tweeters or write to us in the comments below. I think it'd be fun if all the programmers listening to this podcast would upload something, that little app that you thought no one else is going to care about. It's not worth polishing for real public delivery. Polish it enough that Scott Hanselman will accept it. And let's all try to upload at least one app this week.
Tiny Tool Nation. Let's do it. All right. Well, that is going to do it. And right into the show. Show us your tiny tool. Give us the tinytool.com URL of your tiny tool. Leave a comment on our YouTube. Check out Tiny Clips, tinyclips.app. And of course, it's open source on GitHub. You can check out the code and go to there. And yeah, go build some cool stuff. If you have an idea, even if it exists already, just go build it because why not? If it's just for you, then it's the perfect tiny tool for you. That's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.